Hi folks, Ron here. This is a second part, or maybe I'll make this the only part of a vlog that I did on the house of Michelle Phillips, which is right down the road there. My first one, when I did it about a week ago, got cut off and I only got a minute in front of the house. So I'm going to try to do one more and give you some backstory as well. Now what's very interesting is, as I just approached the house, guy came in with a bike. He sat on the patio for a couple of minutes right in front of my car. Then he kind of circled around my car and he kind of circled around the house. And I think he finally went off on his bike. So in the interest of respecting their privacy, if the guy is there when I get back, I may have to come back unobtrusively and film the house. It's just the outside of the house, just the patio area. But if he's not there, maybe I'll sneak in a picture for you. She lives very, and I don't know who the guy is, older guy. I don't know what the relationship is or who he is, and I won't speculate. But he rides a bike, and it's a nice bike. Anyway, but this area, and apparently Mama Michelle, or former Mama, Michelle Phillips, has lived here for decades, but it's certainly not what I think, because I know she did live I believe she lived in Beverly Hills at one time. Maybe that was at the height of her music and acting career. And she's in her 70s now, and we know that Michelle has one daughter named China, with her first husband, the late John Phillips, who started the Mamas and the Papas. And China is a singer actually, with a group called Wilson Phillips with her friends Carney and Wendy Wilson, who are the daughters of Brian Wilson. And China lives in the Santa Barbara area, and she's married to her husband for decades now. I think about 30 years, Billy Baldwin, whose brother is Alec Baldwin, Daniel Baldwin, of the Baldwin acting family. Anyway, and now the story of, well, it's a very interesting story, of course. I mean, Michelle Phillips, I believe, I know she was born Holly Gilliam. She was 16 years old when she was at a club and she saw John Phillips and the Journeymen. John Phillips was a folk singer and belonged to a group called the Journeymen. There were three of them. One was a guy who would go on to be known as Scott McKenzie, who sang the song that John Phillips wrote for him, San Francisco, which was a big hit, which is about the Monterey Pop Festival, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Dick Wiseman and Scott McKenzie and John Phillips in the Journeymen, which were a folk group in the early 60s, and John was at least 10 years older than Michelle. I'll have to verify exactly how old he was, or how much older he was than Michelle. But, you know, John took one look at little Mitch at 16, a little cutie, and fell madly in love with her, and eventually divorced his first wife, Susan, married Michelle, brought Michelle into the Journeymen, and then this was the year, 1962, 63, and then they wanted another singer. John wanted another male singer after the Journeymen kind of fell apart. It was just he and Michelle, so he knew of Denny Doherty, and Denny Doherty, we get lost now. Denny Doherty had been singing with other groups, and Denny knew Cass Elliot, who, I won't go into the whole story, but eventually Cass Elliot persuaded John to let her be in the group. Actually, I've got a couple vlogs on Cass Elliot here on my channel. I've got two of her homes and her gravesite. A spectacular talent who died way too young. Anyway, so the Mamas and the Papas were formed, and they had no money, they had nothing. They were back east in New York at this time, and John and Michelle were in a hotel, and they were wandering around the streets of New York, and Michelle missed California here because it was winter, it was freezing there, it had slush in their shoes, they were freezing, and they went back to the hotel, and John started singing, kind of writing a dirge on his 12-string guitar. All the leaves are brown and the sky is gray. I've been for a walk on a winter's day. And it was we captured all the events that had happened that day. They actually did, John and Michelle did go into a church. They pretended to pray. They weren't really praying, but they pretended to pray to keep warm. And so on and so forth. All the events. Michelle was missing California. He called the California Dream, and he woke up Michelle in the middle of the night. He said, I've got this song I'm working on. Help me work it out. She didn't want to do it. She didn't want to do it. But he persuaded her to wake up enough to, he only had the first line of the song. He persuaded her enough to help him on the rest of the verses. I don't know how much exactly, but I know that she's got co-writing credit. So to this day, I would imagine she still gets royalties, and that's probably a nice chunk of money. So with that, eventually they put enough songs together. John wrote enough songs that they presented them to Lou Adler, who was, I believe, the manager of Barry McGuire. He had hired them to do a song or sing on a Barry McGuire song. Barry McGuire had the song Eve of Destruction. And so Adler hired them. He listened to their music, and he was just blown away. And literally in the recording studio, it was John and the group, Cass and Michelle and Denny, and they went through the songs of their first album on John's 12-string, and he said, apparently, Adler said, I can't believe my ears and eyes. And that basically became the name of the first. Well, anything you want, what do you want? You guys are fantastic, I'll give it to you. And that became the first album's title. And I mean, they had hits right away. Monday, Monday, California Dreamin'. And so, you know, they went from 0 to 60. They went from poverty to having, they went from poverty to having great wealth and fame. And they moved to, Denny and Michelle moved to Laurel Canyon. John lived on as a prince, John and Michelle, up in Bel Air. They, you know, at least John certainly spent more money than he had, but he liked the life of a rock and roll squire. And yeah, they lived up in Bel Air first, in a rented home. And they very quickly became, you know, the heads of, rock and roll royalty. Partying with all the rockers and so on and so forth. And, you know, sex, drugs, rock and roll. Michelle had an affair with Denny, which John did not take well. She had another affair with Gene Clark of the Byrds. Did not go well for John. John eventually kicked Mitch, that's Michelle, out of the group. Actually, all three members, because Cass was in love with Denny. So it was really the ultimate betrayal. She said, if for all the guys you could have, you're young, you're beautiful, you're rich, you're talented, why Denny? And, you know, it was what it was. So the three of them kicked Michelle out of the group. Lou Adler's girlfriend took over. I believe that was for the second record, because John Phillips said, I can't work with my wife. I can't work with her. I can't stand. We got to be separated. I can't stand looking at her because of the affairs that she was having. And he thought rubbing it in his face. So anyway, the group kept on, but you know, it was never the same. And John's best hits, Saw Her Again Last Night, and those are about the problems he was having with Michelle and the affair she was having. Once that kind of dried up, and once the drugs were really started taking over, things were never the same for John's writing. And you know, the magic didn't last long. So basically by late 1967, I don't know, as I said, Michelle was asked to come back into the group. She was sort of forgiven. Lou Adler's girlfriend, Jill Gibson, who had taken over for Michelle in the group, just didn't, pretty blonde, you know, she could sing, but she didn't have the, whatever Michelle had, she just didn't have it. That was agreed by all. So Michelle came back into the group, was welcomed back, sort of tentatively, back in the group, and yeah, then unfortunately, you know, it was short-lived. It was just a matter of time before, let me get my bearings here, just a matter of time before, let's say probably summer, fall of 1967, that Cass Elliot wanted out. She wanted to go her own way, go her own way, go her own way. She wanted to go where you want to go. She wanted to continue on as a solo act, basically, and leave the group. And tensions were high, and I don't think she ever forgave Michelle or Denny. She actually proposed marriage to Denny Doherty, and he said no. He turned her down. Anyway, so from there, the group dissolved. Finally, around 1968, John and Michelle split up for good this time. And she continued on with an acting career and with... I'll be right back to you. I'm back. Michelle continued on with an acting career. I think she was on Knots Landing, but I never watched the show. I'd have to research that. She had relationships with Warren Beatty, Jack Nicholson. She actually married Dennis Hopper, I think, for about 2 weeks till he got crazed, drug-fueled violence, and that lasted a couple of weeks. I think a couple of weeks. Called herself Holly Hopper while she was married. And she did marry again later to a fellow whose name I've forgotten, but China does call her her great stepfather that she loves very much. And he says to this day he loved her very much, and so on and so forth. And I believe he was in the record industry, I know at the time at least. I think he worked for record stations. And, Michelle's kept a little bit of a lower profile lately. Like I said, she is at the time of this filming in her mid-70s. And, yeah, that's it. So that's the story of Holly and Michelle Gilliam Phillips and the Mamas and the Papas. In a minute, I'll try to get you in front of the house and see what we can see. Okay, see you in a minute, folks. Okay, folks, so we're back. And there's the house. Can we get it? Now we can get it a little bit. Home of Michelle Phillips for decades now. Let's make sure no one's on the porch. Let's see what we see. Try to get my head out of the way. That's always the challenge, getting my head out of the way. Okay, Scout. Oh, there's the little doggy. There's the Mercedes. Okay, so there it is. There's the home. And, yeah, we're going to be on our way now. Because we like to, it's a private home and we like to honor people's privacy. Okay, folks, so my name is Ron, and I do really appreciate you. I'm just taking a look at the house myself. The dog knows we're here. Appreciate you watching and listening. If you like my channel, please subscribe. Please put comments in the comment section if you see fit, and please give me likes. I would really appreciate it. Alrighty, so we will see you again at the next location. Thanks, folks. Bye-bye.